The movie opens with lively family celebration, Rosario's first communion filled with laughter, Spanish music and dancing. Rosario helps her mother Elena serve food. Her father Oscar gives her a heartfelt speech about overcoming hardships since immigrating and assures her that her dreams will come true. Elena, however, appears ill, coughing frequently. Later, Rosario goes to find her abuela, grandmother, Griselda, who is missing from the celebration. She finds Griselda in a hidden room engaged in a ritual. Griselda, surprised, has a bleeding hand and warns Rosario to leave, stating her beliefs are not Rosario's. Despite the unsettling encounter, the family gathers for a prayer remembering those who sacrificed for them. As they pray, a wind whistles and rhythmic whispers are heard hinting at Griselda's mysterious practices. Years later, Rosario, now a successful financial professional, is known as Rose. She's ambitious, determined to succeed in the demanding world of finance. Her assistant Harlow helps manage her busy schedule. Rose politely declines a colleague's request for investment advice, citing firm thresholds. Her boss Alexander urges her to dump a failing stock, Sunbelt Dynamics, but Rose, recalling its specialization in geothermal heating, decides to hold onto it, predicting a rise due to an impending winter storm. Her gamble pays off as the storm hits and Sunbelt Dynamics stock soars. The blizzard intensifies, making travel difficult. Rose receives a distressing call from the superintendent of her grandmother's building. Griselda has died after a fall. The superintendent informs Rose that because Griselda was undocumented, her body might be lost in the system unless a family member claims her. Despite the severe weather, Rose feels compelled to go, remembering her strained relationship with Griselda since her mother's funeral. Her father Oscar tries to dissuade her, citing the dangerous driving conditions, but Rose, stubborn like her mother, insists. She plays a voicemail from Griselda, a distorted message of apology and pleas for forgiveness, punctuated by Griselda's labored breathing and coughing. Upon arriving at the apartment building, Rose finds the elevator out of service. The superintendent Marty, a gruff but seemingly helpful man, escorts her up the stairs. He mentions Griselda was homesick, always talking about returning to Cayapa. Marty and a neighbor Joe have moved Griselda's body to the bed, covering her with a sheet out of respect. Marty tries to light some candles, but they won't stay lit. He leaves Rose alone, promising the ambulance will arrive soon. Rose approaches her grandmother's body, heartbroken and bewildered by Griselda's final moments and the grim scene. A glass breaks, flies buzz and insects chitter in the eerie silence. The ambulance arrives but quickly leaves due to another emergency, leaving Rose stranded with the body in the blizzard. Frustrated, Rose tries to move Griselda's body, discovering a strange tattooed symbol on her grandmother's arm related to Sunbelt Dynamics. As Rose searches for clues, the unsettling atmosphere intensifies. She hears soft creaks and groans and the lights flicker. Suddenly there's a loud knock at the door. It's Joe, the neighbor, asking for his air fryer, which he claims Griselda borrowed. Rose, suspicious, refuses to let him in. Joe's persistence and his strange comment about her bandaged hand make her uneasy. Rose investigates further and finds a hidden compartment. Inside, she discovers a cauldron, dirt sticks and human skulls. Her phone vibrates with another call from her father, but she rejects it. She then searches Kobe and online, learning about Palo, a dark religion involving animal and human remains used to make deals and curses. Rose realizes Griselda was a Palero and the symbol she saw, La Firma, represents life and death, the symbol of the accursed. No escape. She's convinced Griselda placed a curse on her. Panicked, Rose calls her father, explaining her discovery of the Black Magic Temple and her belief in the curse. Oscar tries to calm her, stating that Griselda was a witch doctor to help people not curse them and that her practices were a way to connect with her roots after immigrating without papers. Rose, however, blames herself, believing the curse is a punishment for turning her back on Griselda and her mother after her parents' divorce. She realizes she used school as an excuse to avoid dealing with her mother's death. Despite her father's pleas, Rose is determined to break the curse, believing only the cauldron can do it. Rose returns to Griselda's apartment and attempts to perform a ritual to break the curse, following instructions she found online. The ritual requires the blood of the cursed, herself, and the blood of the Palero who placed the curse, Griselda. As she prepares to cut herself, Joe bursts in, demanding his air fryer. Rose, enraged, snaps at him, accusing him of not knowing Griselda and dismissing his claims about the air fryer. Joe retorts that if Rose had visited more often, she'd know. The supernatural occurrences escalate. Rose is violently thrown around the apartment by an unseen force. She sees a ghostly vision of her mother Elena, who tries to warn her. A desperate phone call to her father goes unanswered. Rose finds a book in Spanish about breaking curses and discovers that the blood of both the cursed and the Palero who created the curse must be placed in the cauldron. As she cuts herself, Griselda's final voicemail plays a desperate plea for forgiveness. The ritual fails and the demonic presence intensifies, seemingly Griselda herself, who physically attacks Rose. The entity vomits a dark substance onto Rose, transforming her. Joe, hearing the commotion, knocks on the door, complaining about the noise and still asking for his air fryer. Rose screams at him to go away, then angrily tells him Griselda would never have an air fryer because she was Mexican. Joe, undeterred, reiterates that if Rose had visited more often, she would have known her grandmother better. The film ends with Rose, now possessed or cursed, acknowledging that Joe is right about her lack of visits, hinting at a grim transformation and the tragic consequences of her past actions. The movie picks up with Rosario, now cursed and terrified, in her grandmother's apartment, confronting Joe, the neighbor who continues to pester her about his air fryer. Rosario, consumed by her ordeal, lashes out, questioning his involvement and his persistence. Joe in turn reveals that Griselda often spoke of Rosario, expressing immense love and pride in her accomplishments. He mentions hearing Griselda praying day and night for Rosario's dreams to come true, a detail that deeply affects Rosario. After Joe leaves, Rosario has a profound realization. Her grandmother didn't curse her but rather made a deal with a spirit named Cobayen to ensure Rosario's prosperity. This deal came with a terrifying price. Once Rosario's dreams were realized, Cobayen would torment her until death by sunrise in the form of a scorned spirit from the past. Horrified, Rosario decides to break the deal. Consulting a spell book, she learns that to nullify the deal, the Pale Griselda, who made it, must place their blood in the Nganga cauldron, sacrificing their soul to Cobayen. Since Griselda is already dead, Rosario devises a plan to trap Cobayen in her grandmother's corpse. She performs the ritual, chanting in Spanish as sirens wail outside, signaling the arrival of the medics. Marty, the superintendent, lets them in, but they're bewildered when Griselda's body is no longer on the bed. Suddenly, a terrifying unseen force attacks Marty. The medics, growing impatient with the strange occurrences, leave, dismissing the situation as a crazy broad. Rosario, still reeling from the supernatural events, is further distressed when she notices her phone displaying no, followed by eerie thudding sounds. Determined, Rosario continues her fight against Cobayen. She uses the spell book to find a counter ritual, chanting in a foreign language. The spirit manifests as a monstrous entity that physically assaults her. Just as she's about to be overwhelmed, her mother Elena appears as a ghostly vision, urging her to stay away. The apparition of her mother tells her she's proud of her and that the nightmare is over. Rosario, filled with remorse, apologizes for abandoning her mother and grandmother, explaining how she sided with her father after the divorce, mistakenly believing it would lead to greater success. Elena reassures her that she and Griselda always supported her and that their sacrifices in coming to the country were for Rosario's better future. The emotional reunion is cut short when the mother's spirit tells Rosario to close her eyes and say, "I'm a very selfish girl." As Rosario repeats the phrase, she experiences vivid flashbacks, her mother's suffering during the border crossing, the harsh realities of their new life, and the brutal death of a man. She finally understands the immense sacrifice her mother made. The vision of Elena, now with a sinister twist, reveals itself to be Cobayen. The entity taunts Rosario, demanding she see its sacrifice. Rosario, regaining her resolve, rejects Cobayen, declaring it is not her mother. She then, with newfound determination, confronts the spirit, declaring her own deal, to trap Cobayen, eternity trapped inside my grandmother's corpse. She continues chanting the counter ritual, invoking the spirits of the Nganga for protection. Just as the ritual reaches its climax, Rosario's father Oscar bursts in. He's horrified by Rosario's appearance and the chaos in the apartment. Rosario reveals that her grandmother didn't curse her but that Oscar made the deal with Cobayen on her first communion, wishing for her prosperity and success, unaware of the horrific price. He confesses his desperate act, driven by his inability to provide the life he wanted for her. He explains that Griselda, knowing the danger, had been regularly performing blood sacrifices, placing her blood in the Nganga to protect Rosario from the consequences of his deal. The scars on Griselda's arms were from these acts of selfless protection. Oscar, seeing Rosario's injuries, decides to take on the burden himself. He cuts his hand and places his blood in the Nganga, believing he can protect Rosario. However, Rosario quickly realizes the true meaning of the ritual. If the Pale who made the deal places their blood in the Nganga, their body and soul is sacrificed to Cobayen. Oscar, the one who made the original deal, has now sealed his own fate. Cobayen violently possesses Oscar, transforming him into a monstrous entity. A brutal fight ensues between Rosario and the possessed Oscar. Rosario, in a desperate act of self-defense, is forced to kill her own father. The film then fast-forwards to Rosario now working at Fuentes Financial. She's helping Miguel, the colleague she previously dismissed, with his investments, making an exception for him. She's no longer the cold, ambitious Rose but the compassionate Rosario. She's taken her grandmother's old photos and the air fryer from the apartment, symbolizing her acceptance of her heritage. In the final scene, Rosario performs a ritual, chanting in Spanish to keep the spirits of her father and grandmother close. She coughs, hinting at the lingering effects of the supernatural encounter, but her determined expression suggests she has embraced her lineage and will continue her grandmother's fight against such dark forces. The sound of Neil Armstrong's "The Eagle Has Landed" plays, signifying a new beginning and a personal victory for Rosario. If you enjoy watching this video, then subscribe to Angel Recaps for the latest movies explanation.